Stopping y'all. Welcome to another reaction. The homie Charles are. Oh, whoa. Inside the country that kills disabled people. Holy shit. That is heavy. I know I wasn't supposed to be cussing this early, but my god, that is heavy. Let's. No intro. Let's get straight into it.
Canada, where the government will help you kill yourself.
Since 2016, 45,000 people have been killed using MAID.
A doctor that works in the hospital approached me and asked if I had ever considered asking for MAID. No, I was just asking for them to do something about the pain.
I don't know what it says about us that our response is to say, well, how about we offer you the choice to end your life?
I have a lot to live for. I'm not giving up, and to even offer me that option is insulting.
I've been in the place that a lot of people who want MAID have been in, where they just want it for an ending. They're like, I've suffered enough, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. And I repeatedly, I think it's 3 times, asked you about organ donation, where you're literally too poor to live, let us take your organs, and you saved us $86 million.
Since 2016, Canada legalized euthanasia for those suffering terminal illnesses with reasonably foreseeable deaths. They called it medical assistance in dying, MAID.
But what if you change your mind? You might just be in pain one day, and the next day are feeling great watching your shows and stuff. So that's crazy.
And in 2021, Canada controversially amended the law to extend MAID to people suffering from a grievous or irremediable condition that have no risk of a foreseeable death. And in 2022, MAID use increased 31%, with 13,241 MAID deaths, accounting for 4.1% of all deaths in Canada that year. But with the wait times to have the government help you unalive yourself being shorter than the wait time to receive pain treatment, long-term care, and other medical support aimed to improve the quality of life for people with serious illnesses, many Canadians fear the government is making it easier to die than to receive the medical care that the disabled, elderly, and mentally ill need.
Non-contributing members of society, so the homeless are being targeted, elderly are being targeted, mentally ill are being targeted.
Allowing the state to make decisions about who should live and who should die, you don't know what kind of monster you're likely to conjure up doing that.
But why is Canada helping more people end their lives more than any other country on earth? Is MAID a program to give those who are suffering a more dignified death? Or is MAID a dystopian eugenics program designed to kill those stressing Canada's overburdened socialized healthcare system? I hit the streets of Toronto to see what Canadians think about MAID and who should qualify to be able to die. Do you have any thoughts on medically assisted death here in Canada?
I mean, I think under the right circumstances, yeah.
Okay.
I've lost a family member to it, but it's a different type of grieving, but yeah.
Hey, if that's what you want, I guess go for it. If you got some mental illness, maybe that should be something that we look closer at, but especially for older people, like, you know, if you want to go, you have every right to if you want.
What about a minor?
Not a minor, I would think. You definitely need to be able to, you know, legally make your own decisions.
Let's say I'm depressed and I go to the state and say, hey, I want you to kill me. Do you agree with that or too far?
Too far.
Too far?
Yeah, it's too far.
Good or bad thing?
His face.
You think it should only be accessible to terminal illnesses or mental illnesses as well?
Illnesses as well.
What was the situation you lost your family member to in that context?
Cancer.
Okay.
When you know it's terminal, she fought 18 years of a phenomenal fight, but you get to the point where you just want to be on your way with dignity, and I think it was a difficult thing for those left behind, but an important thing to be available to her.
Do you think she died a more dignified death, in her opinion, than she would have otherwise?
100%, because she was in her full capacity, and she made her own decisions on that.
It's a bad thing.
Bad thing?
Yeah. Personally, I don't agree with it. When somebody is in that state in their life, they shouldn't have to decide on things like this.
They're not in the mental position to make a competent decision?
In general, I think for we human, we shouldn't encourage this sort of behavior. It will probably just bring some other problems in the society.
I mean, I agree. Some people maybe don't want to live because they are in bad conditions. So I think it's good that they can decide.
What about, let's say I have an illness, a mental illness, like severe depression? Do you think I should be able to end my own life via the state?
I don't think so, because maybe with therapy you can and pills you can improve.
Okay.
But it's different if you are like in bad conditions physically.
Yeah, like
Horrible.
in a
Horrible.
vegetation
Well, undecided.
state.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I think if it makes someone happy and they choose it, I would be comfortable based on their decision.
if someone's like, yo, do this, I would question that.
Okay.
What's the intent behind it, right?
Do you think your Canadian tax dollars should fund a program that is killing Canadians?
When you position it like that, no, of course not.
No. Yeah, I guess that's framing.
Like to see our tax
State-funded euthanasia, then, right?
Yeah. Probably not. Like if it is a choice, maybe it'd be more privatized. Yeah, I feel like our tax dollars can be used for something way better than what's going on right now.
Do you support state-funded euthanasia?
I do. Yes.
What if I'm like severely depressed? Do you think I should qualify to go die by the state?
No, I think you should help people for that. Euthanasia only for people who are very sick or, terminal.
It depends, again, like it's case by case. If you're like 24, that's really young and like.
I think that we need to look at if this person is wanting to commit suicide, then we need to look at mental health issues, not just let's just kill each other.
I don't know. I think that it's being used in the wrong way in many instances. I think now it's getting applied in situations where I don't think it should be. So financial hardship, most especially mental illness, but especially financial hardship. I've heard of some stories where people just hand to mouth and they can't get out of it. And this is being proposed to them as an option. And I just think it's disgusting in that way. So, yeah.
I think in general, it can be a good thing. I think it's been probably overextended with a little oversight.
Do you think it's being offered to people who perhaps should not be offered death?
That's a difficult thing to ascertain because I do think that people do have agency and should have a lot of say in their own matter. It's just a question of probably needs to be better vetted by regulatory bodies, in this case, generally physicians. In this.
Do you think it should be state funded? Last question for it.
We do have a healthcare system that is state funded, so if done appropriately, yes, I do.
Do you think, given that Pandora's box is open here, that it'll be sold to certain individuals as a quick fix?
I mean, my understanding is that it already has been, instead of providing a more holistic and more compassionate approach, because I think it might be a quick fix. I think if you have a terminal illness and that's an option you want to take advantage of, I think more power to you, but I just think that it's been pushed in ways that it shouldn't be.
So a government program where I can die if I want to die, if I get 2 doctors to sign off, good or bad?
I think it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it should be someone's choice. They're right. If you don't want to live in a body that doesn't work anymore, it should be your right to be able to go. So yeah, I think it's a personal choice. I mean, it's not for everybody, obviously, but I'm telling you, what I see in a long-term care home is pretty sad. I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be able to not know if I'm hungry or feeding myself or taking care of myself. So I think it's a good thing, and I hope we keep it.
That's track 1, obviously, right? That's the terminal illness. But do you think that should extend to, let's say, mental illnesses, like severe depression or something like that?
Yeah, I think it should include that to certain degrees, with like lots of peer review, more than one doctor, lots of information thrown at it before any decision made. Yeah.
But what about those who are not terminally ill but still want to die? Let me introduce you to Mitchell, a 42-year-old man who's considered MAID as an option to escape his mental illnesses and financial destitution.
We're here discussing MAID. How did you get acquainted with MAID? Tell me a little bit about your story. You can kind of start at point 0.
Sure. The first time I learned about MAID was about 4 years ago. I was living in an absolute slum. It had black mold, a foot up the walls. My cat was really sick. My landlord was extremely abusive. He would knock on the window with a machete. We were raided by police twice, where I'm sitting, my boxers being searched and my room's being searched, and I didn't know why. And I was paying $600 a month Canadian for that place. And eventually I hit a breaking point and I learned about MAID and I started to fantasize about it. I was like, that's my release. I can't do it myself. I've had passive suicide most of my life, so I haven't been able to act on it. And I was like, well, that's my way out. And so I started writing letters and I started getting myself ready to apply. I didn't get the documents. There was nothing printed. They were still kind of laying out the rules and they would have had it printed out by then, but they postponed it like the week before for 2 years. So 2027, March 17th is when MAID for solely mental illness will come into play. Tracks back to around when I was 17. That was the first time I was hospitalized. And they put me in there for a couple months and I found out I had social anxiety, generalized anxiety, PTSD, borderline and histrionic personality disorders, and major depressive disorder. And so they all knotted together. And I suspect now, later on, that I probably had autism too. And I was bullied and beaten up and lit on fire. And so it all kind of came to a point where I was like, I'm going to end my life. And I was going to steal my dad's gun and do it. And so I told them, and they took me to Homewood here in Guelph, the mental hospital downtown. And when the doctors told them my whole diagnosis, by the time I was 18, a year later, I was homeless. I started selling my body at the age of 18, homeless, without any family. And that was downtown here at Guelph. And that just adds to the trauma. And it feels like it's almost like a blank zone. I was homeless seven times, hospitalized 14 times, lost track of how many clients I was with. It destroys you inside, and you become so dehumanized. Diagnosed with 2 more mental illnesses since the homelessness.
So did you speak to a doctor initially? Did you say, hey, I'm considering this? What are your thoughts?
No.
Okay, so you never got that far at that time.
That far because I was waiting for March 17th. Was when they were going to make it eligible for people with solely mental illness, and I knew I'd have a fast pass.
And then Mitchell and I went downtown to discuss another group he thinks MAID may be targeting.
We're here right now because you used to live here.
Yeah, actually, when I was 18, I first found myself homeless here in the downtown core of Guelph. You can feel the temperature right now with that wind. Imagine being in a small little tent and having just cardboard to sleep on. Your mind really starts to wander, and as I said earlier, you dehumanize yourself and you start to think of yourself as less, and that really, it leads towards you considering things like MAID or suicide on your own. But MAID would be in place where you'd be able to...
No, you're down and out at the moment. You're going to climb out of this situation, bro. You know what I mean? I do not agree with that, bro. Mental health in order to, you know what I'm saying, yourself? No, you're tripping, bro. Then every bum is going to have a tough day and want to do it. And that's, I just thought of it right now. That's probably what they want, though.
Get accepted for it, and someone would do it for you. And if that's the problem that's stopping you, if you're stuck at, passive suicide, then you get that extra nudge that you don't really need when you're already vulnerable.
Do you think people who are homeless will be targeted by the MAID agenda?
I absolutely think so, just because through my own experience, I gained that agoraphobia and bulimia, and that made me eligible for MAID, and therefore that's already the targeting in place.
Do you think there will be people calling the hotline, or will they be propositioned and sequestered by those offering MAID?
I think a lot of people will call the hotline on their own because it's a very private matter, but I also think that
Yeah, no, there's no way you should want to do that. I'm not saying you should not want to do that. People have problems and stuff like that. But that dude is an able-bodied man. He might have mental problems, but he was alert enough to notice his cheeks. How would he approach the people? In my mind, I'm thinking, how did he approach the people? Was it walking to the cars? Was he knowing? Was he around maybe like the gay area? And he was approaching them? I do not know. Why do I have so many questions? Why do I want to know every single night that happened for it? I'm just I'm kidding. I'm gay.
Group of professionals that are going to try and push it onto us like they have with veterans and Paralympians in the past.
Amidst this housing crisis and this unaffordable living crisis, could anyone end up in this position right here in Canada right now?
Yeah, I think anyone could. I think if you lost your rental or you had a disagreement with the landlord or they got greedy or, a lot of these corporate landlords are evicting entire buildings and increasing the rent. So you might feel safe right now. You might be at home saying, well, I'm not disabled. I've got a house. That can be taken away from you so easily. I mean, all these people weren't born to be homeless. They were born to parents and they have brothers and sisters and families somewhere like I did, but they're at the edge of society and they're at their most vulnerable. And I think that's why MAID is an absolute atrocity right now to be the priority over, giving these people homes and safety and comfort.
And as we were talking, this dude heard what we were discussing and wanted to share his personal story about MAID.
Okay, so we just bumped into you. Can you tell me a bit about your story?
I was almost murdered about a year ago here in this town by a gang of 6 guys. It was awful. I don't really want to get into too much about that, but my rehabilitation has encompassed basically me just taking care of myself and the people of the community, helping me out. The system's completely failed me. When all this happened, the only kind of help that I was really offered by victim services was therapy kind of help, and if I chose, I could take MAID.
So immediately you were presented the option to end your own life.
Yeah, that's how you put it.
That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, for me, absolutely, considering that I fought off 6 thugs to stay alive. There would be no reason for me to want to take my own life. Just the assumption that somebody is going through struggle, that they can't handle themselves or they can't accept help and bring themselves back up is atrocious. I have a lot to live for, and I'm not giving up. To even offer me that option is insulting.
You are also telling me that you know someone who was presented with this option and they took it.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
A member of our community here, absolutely going through hard times, emotionally, mentally. At the same time, to know that there could have been another way, and that all of his friends, most of them, kind of feel the same way. It's traumatizing to the community, actually. I guess we're kind of talking about the homeless situation in Maid right now.
Specifically, them being targeted or at least coerced into maybe using that as an exit from their financial or psychological hardships, right?
Yeah, I'm in a situation right now. I'm homeless due to this story I didn't really get into too many details about, but through my process of the system, it's almost impossible to get out. There's lots of priorities that are put in place to make certain sections of the community not really have options. If you're in need of help and there's no help for you, the amount of abandonment can lead people to making poor choices. The stress in our society is growing. You can bet there's going to be people choosing the easy way out.
While those who are severely depressed, mentally ill, or financially hopeless, like when Mitchell considered Maid as perhaps a painless exit, what about the physically disabled who are being offered Maid without ever even asking for it? But real quick,
I'd be like, go on down the road, you fuck.
If you want to support our boots on the ground, independent
Cerebral palsy. I was born with it. I was born very premature and should not have lived, but God had other ideas.
You're a miracle yourself. Yeah, this is...
Yeah, there's no reason that I should be here. I was born at 25 weeks gestation, weighing 1 pound and 6 ounces.
Yeah.
Before NICUs were invented, and I was breathing on my own. There's no reason I should have been breathing on my own except for God. And I'm here because I'm concerned with the Pandora's box that this is.
Heather, when were you first made aware of the existence of Maid being offered by the government?
I was like all ears as soon as they introduced the legislation. The disabled community saw the threat right away.
The threat of eugenics?
Yeah, exactly. They'll start with the terminally ill, of course, but that's just the start off point. 2017, I started to have issues where I was having muscle spasms that started from my low back and would fire straight down to my toes and would basically lock up every muscle between those 2 points. So, second hospitalization, I had a hospitalist, which is a doctor that works in the hospital, approach me and ask if I had ever considered asking for Maid. The first time I was just stunned. I'm asking for pain control, not for death. My unfavorite nurse was on and I had to use the bathroom, so I rang for that and she came. I got back to the bed with no assistance from her. As she was putting the side rolls up, she said, have you ever considered Maid? Because this isn't quality of life, this is existing. And I just said to her, you don't get to make that call. She said, well, if I were in your position, I'd take it in a heartbeat.
Jeez.
And I said, the answer is no. God put me on this earth and he's the only one taking me home. And then she said, now you're being selfish. That was like, whoa, this is going somewhere not good fast.
Yeah. You mentioned that you were offered Maid in every other region of Canada?
Yeah, I was offered it twice in BC or British Columbia, once in Alberta, which is in Saskatchewan, and I thankfully have had really good care here so far. It's more prevalent than you would ever imagine.
It's already absolutely clear that Canada has a housing problem. It's a crisis right now. Those lumped together with the fact that there isn't an increase in mental health support, there isn't an increase in addiction and drug support. In fact, there's a decrease. We just lost our safe consumption site and there's already been 2 deaths. So people who are left in the behind are just going like, okay, so 2 years for an eye surgery or 8 years for a hip or, those, and they feel so stressed out. They know they're not going to get mental health support. They know they're not going to get the drug support they need. And they're already so dehumanized, especially when you're homeless and you don't have a place in the world. You really have to deal with an identity crisis. And so I've been in the place that a lot of people who want Maid have been in, where they just want it for an ending. They're like, I've suffered enough, I'm done, I can't do this anymore. They repeatedly, I think it's 3 times, ask you about organ donation because they want to have the organs of these people who are too poor. And so what does that make it, that the rich are, too rich to die and that the poor are too poor to live? It just becomes a second-tier healthcare system in itself.
Homeless people with drug addictions, mentally ill. Who's on the hit list of the Maid program in your worst case scenario?
I think all of the above, because I try to correlate together that, okay, homelessness, you get agoraphobia, you get bulimia, you get these stress, PTSD kinds of things. With drug addiction, you can have different kinds of psychoses or mental illnesses pop up from that. And a lot of these people who get into those drugs and alcohol is because they're escaping from being on the street.
There's been instances here where people have to wait up to 5 years for treatment, but they can have MAID in 91 days.
So it would take longer for them to get the medical treatment they needed than to kill themselves.
Exactly. It's our government. And to get rid of people that have chronic conditions that use up a lot of healthcare dollars. The people that they see as non-contributing members of society. So the homeless are being targeted. Elderly are being targeted. Mentally ill are being targeted. Though they say they're on hold, but it's just really just a facade. And children are next. They're trying to push through euthanasia for children with severe illnesses or terminal condition. So the child of a certain age could themselves, without their parents' consent, ask for MAID. That's what they're trying to pass, yeah. It'll be under the guise of chronic illness and stuff. So there's at least been 2 or 3 cases of people in poverty, unable to pay bills, looking at homelessness, choosing MAID first. Like, the numbers are crazy. Let me get the stats up here. And in 2016, 1,018 people chose to die by MAID.
That's a lot of.
In 2017, 2,838 people died by MAID, a doubling at least. 2018, 4,493, double again. 2019, 5,665, and we're entering the pandemic.
Yeah, big turning point.
2020, that jumps to 7,611. 2021 jumps to 10,092. 2022, 13,241. I've heard that figure could double for 2023.
Why are people ending their lives?
Because their choice for healthcare is being denied.
Do you think the doctors see it as a productive, compassionate alternative to the healthcare, or is it just cost effective?
Well, I think the doctors are being sold a narrative and buying into it. Some aren't, some are quitting. I think my doctor retired in 2016 because he saw the writing on the wall, and he's a Christian doctor. He couldn't be part of that. Yeah. I also couldn't find proof of this, so I can't back it up, but there's also organ donations have gone up exponentially since MAID. That's one of the last things they ask the family is if they'll donate their organ.
You're too expensive, but we want your organs. It's dark.
It's evil. It's downright evil.
What I've learned is that MAID at its core is coercive. It's been whispering to me. I feel drawn to it all the time because it is that exit. It's replacing that passive suicide with a physical person who can do it for you at the end of the line. Okay. There's a lot of stories, if you look them up, there's a Canadian Paralympian who was offered MAID, a lot of veterans. That was a big shocker a year or 2 ago where they're being offered MAID instead of help with palliative care or maybe hospitalization. You get that kind of that push and that draw from those kinds of people. And then you got lobbyists like Dying with Dignity, where they come into the picture and they don't care about the poverty issue, the homelessness issue, all that. They're pushing it for a right to die. So they're saying, it's dying with dignity. But my question to them is, how can you die with dignity if you didn't live with it first? A lot of us in the community have that passive vitality, so we won't act on it. But if there's somebody down there who's got a pill for you and they're just going to do it for you, that's the coercion. That's the easy way out. And when you're facing all these things, homelessness, poverty, drug addiction, mental health problems, especially when you're in psychosis, how do you make the right decision?
At the point in which you were offered MAID, had you indicated any desire to end your life?
None whatsoever. No, I was just asking for them to do something about it. Nothing they gave me was helping.
If you didn't have your condition, they would have offered you MAID in that context?
Probably not.
Probably not.
It's ending a life. It's murder as far as I'm concerned. And I know there's a lot of countries right now debating this topic, which is why I'm talking about it, because I want those countries to know that it's a Pandora's box. Once the lid's off, there's no putting it back on.
Can you tell me about the advocacy work you're doing and your position on all of this?
Sure, yeah. I'm trying to make sure that everyone understands that this is not a black and white issue. That, if you ban all those seniors and people that advocates fought for their ability to be able to end their life near, the end of their own life as it is with stage 4 cancer and all that kind of stuff, that needs to be cemented and kept strong. But track 2 is the threat. It's a threat to people with disabilities. It's a threat to everyday people, because people with disabilities are made up with people who are in car accidents, victims of assault from a partner, people who are at workplace and got injured. And all of them are falling under the disability tree now. And some of those people are being denied workplace benefits, or they're dealing with that violent partner still, and they're stuck there because of the benefits or because of homelessness. All these things are percolating together and making it an absolute threat to us through coercion. And a lot of people were scared of it, even though they wouldn't take it. They know that they're not going to, but they know it's there. It becomes this thing in your head where it's just a chant or an echo, where you're always like, well, it's a really bad day today, but at least I have MAID. We're having a health crisis right now because of the privatization thing. So hospitals don't have beds. There's hallway medicine. I haven't seen a doctor in 4 years. There's none available. If you want to call any one of them near my house, you'll get an answering machine that says we're not taking new clients.
Okay.
So access to those things being denied, and then the federal government not giving us the disability benefit, both the provincial and the federal government shot down basic income. There's all these provisions they could do. They could do a national disability insurance plan like Australia, the NDIS. They could do basic income. They could do the Canadian disability benefit properly, where if we each got like $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 more a month, and that was supplemented with other, basic income and a couple other things, we would all be able to thrive. But right now, across Canada, every single province and territory, their disability amount is at least 1 to 2 times below the poverty line.
So it's unlivable if you're in a position where you can't work at this point.
And that's part of the coercion. Unlivable, right?
Why not go die, right? It's more or less the message they're sending. So. Heather, why are you vocally sharing your story about MAID?
Because I have crosshairs on my back, and I need people to know it. I've said to all my family and friends, if you hear that they killed me by MAID, it's murder, because I didn't consent. And it's sick to me that I even have to say that to them, but if I ever get to a place where I can't speak for myself, I can't trust the healthcare system not to do it. I have to speak out, not just for me, but for everybody else. This is not normal. This is not right. This is not ethical in any way, shape, or form, and it should not be happening in a democracy, in a civilized country.
Do you think many people who have tendencies are seeing MAID as just an escape route?
Yeah, I agree with that. The only caveat would be that I've watched for 30 years while the supports weren't in place, and I don't trust they're going to be in place in 10 years.
Sure.
So where am I going to be in 10 years? How mobile am I going to be? How conscientious of myself am I going to be? Like, I don't even know if I'll be here because the amount of stress I deal with, I'm always worrying about a heart attack or a stroke. Unfortunately, I think it is a bit of column A and column B. Column A being that it is social murder. It's a eugenics, because the people who are most going to apply are the ones who are the most vulnerable, and they're getting the least amount of help. So it's just obvious social engineering, eugenics, whatever you want to call it there. So since 2016, 45,000 people have been killed. 13,000 were in 2022, and it's exponentially getting bigger. California has about the same population as Canada, and California's only done 850. Why are people killing themselves in Canada with MAID 16 times more than in California?
Do you think the doctors are coercing them into this being a good option?
I think it's a perfect storm. I think it's homelessness, poverty, doctors, the misinformation, and the dying with dignity lobbyists. It's going to be George Orwell. It's going to be 1984. It's going to be any of those warnings that we were getting, where you're literally too poor to live. Let us take your organs, and you saved us $86 million. News media is not covering it because they're all corporate owned. It's been an absolute nightmare to get eyeballs on this. It's usually foreign press that comes and wants to cover MAID in Canada.
Okay. It's dystopian.
It's a big problem here because right now it costs us $80 billion to maintain poverty. So why wouldn't they start reinvesting that and redistributing that and getting some people off the streets? They also let in way too many immigrants. The one other thing that I've been worried about, I said it last year and I don't know how in place it is MAID in prison. Because if you think about it, you could kill a political prisoner, get them sent to prison, make MAID their only option, which is what we're all dealing with out here. That. If life's unlivable in there for them, they will choose MAID, and you've just taken someone out without even firing a shot. It's a further hypothetical, but that's the slippery slopes direction.
And I've also heard that minors who may qualify for the mental illness track and deformed babies or babies with severe disabilities are now being considered. Is that real?
Yeah, that was real. That was a doctor in Quebec trying to table that. And I think that Dying with Dignity is also trying to put children in later on, but trying to get the win right now with the solely mental illness. That's the biggest problem with these types of programs. It is always a slippery slope. It's always something more has to be included. And that's what the UK is really echoing, where it's like, we might put this in place, but look what happened in Canada. Now they're doing this and this, and purely solely mental illness. Like, that's crossing the line.
And if you go back in time 2 years ago, if it was sold to you and pushed on you by multiple doctors, do you think you would have taken them up on it?
100%. Because I don't care about my life and I want to change things. And my biggest goal doing all this advocacy that I do is to make sure that I don't happen again. That there isn't some 17-year out there about to go homeless and be 18, selling his body on the streets, living in squalor, becoming an alcoholic, and just bouncing around for 20-odd, 30-odd years, not understanding what was going on and who was doing it to him. But now that I'm an advocate, I'm on the other end of that, and I realized somebody was advocating for me when I was out under those bridges and in those cardboard boxes, and that now I have to represent 1,000, maybe a couple thousand who are out there right now like that, in shelters, who are on the street, who aren't vocal, who aren't articulate, who don't have the spot to be able to do these kinds of messages. And that's what we're
you.
fighting for. Yeah.
I think you need to remain here. Now you have responsibility on your shoulders. Is there a world where MAID could be implemented against your own will at some point if some medical problem happened?
If this pandemic treaty is signed, people don't understand what's in this treaty. It's far beyond just pandemic.
Tell me what's in this treaty.
It seizes control of healthcare, period, in the nations that sign up for it. They can force vaccinate anybody with any vaccine they deem necessary. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's other laws on our books right now. We've got a Bill 63, I think it is, that's in third reading right now, that would make speaking out against our government jailable.
Just like Great Britain.
There was a time nations stood up for democracy and fought for freedom, but this is a different kind of warfare now. And nations are being taken without a shot being fired. It's scary. People need to wake up because it's not going to be very long before there's no going back.
While euthanasia seems to be a more controllable death for those with debilitating terminal illnesses and predictable expiration dates, one must wonder who else with the ability to live a meaningful life might be allured to the permanent escape it offers. Perhaps the country should measure its humanity not by the ease in which it will help you end your life, but rather by the creation of infrastructure to help those suffering short-term hardships to get back on their feet and become productive members of society. In 2022, 63% of MAID users cited cancer as their reason to die, while only 3.5% of those who used MAID did not have terminal illnesses with foreseeable death dates. But that's an increase from 2.2% of all MAID users back in 2021. As the eligibility to receive MAID will expand to those solely with mental illnesses in 2027, will more and more people look to MAID to escape the harsh reality of living in Canada? And will other countries look to Canada while building their own euthanasia program? And please go show some love to Heather, who just wrote a book, and show some love to Mitchell, who does graphic design.
Nice.
I just found out I've been paying for 27 subscriptions. Yeah.
Bro, that's crazy as hell, man. That is crazy. There's, especially them trying to do it with the kids, and then you're gonna have people, boy, and then you're gonna have people thinking that they're like trans and shit like that, and I don't know. I'm not welcome back at the house, man. Just give it to me. And you can't be making no crazy rational decisions like that just off a moment. You know what I mean? Crazy. Great video by Tyler Oliveira. Make sure you get that boy subscribe. Maybe make your boy subscribe. We're close to that 100. And more reactions coming. Peace.